Hey guys, it's Raymond from FHF Solutions. Um, as you know, a lot of us are on lockdown right now, so I'm doing a backsplash for my wife because usually I'm doing work for other people's houses and don't get to work on my own house. So I'm gonna go through everything if you guys want to follow along and do your own backsplash. This should give you pretty much everything you need to do to do a basic backsplash. I'm gonna kind of call this a level 1. Because I'm not, I have a pretty simple kitchen. I have one corner, so that kind of would make it a level 2, but let's call it a 1.25 because it's a 90-degree corner. I'm going to quickly go through all the tools that you should need. If I do forget something, I do apologize, but this should be just about everything because, again, like I said, it's a pretty simple install, and I'm doing this with my iPad, so I do apologize for the light not filtering too well. Let me switch this around so that you can see what I've got here on the table. So it's a lot of stuff, but it's pretty straightforward. I'll explain why. I've got some tin snips here. This is because I'm actually using a schluter on the corners rather than leaving the grout open. If you're not going to do the schluter, if you're just going to have a raw edge, you don't need these. That's the only reason I have those. I've got a flathead screwdriver because I've got to take, let's see, there we go. Because I've got to take off the electric plates. I've got a Phillips head screwdriver, but I've got it on a impact drill just so that I don't have to do sheetrock screws with a just flat Phillips head screwdriver. I've got a razor blade here. I mean, look at the edge on that thing. That thing is super dull. So obviously we're not using it for anything other than just menial stuff. I've got a tape measure. I've got a concrete stir, grout stir, whatever you want to call it. It's essentially for mixing up all of our thin set and grout. I've got electric meters here, so because I have to turn the electricity off to pull the plugs. It doesn't mean I have to take them out. I just have to pull them out so that I can get the tile to the sheetrock without having to worry about getting electrocuted. I've got a drill. This is what we're going to attach to the concrete mixer. You notice this one is a plug drill. That's because it's going to require a good bit of torque. You can try doing it with a battery drill, but it's probably not going to be enough. I've got a 1 foot level here. I've got a 4 foot level here. The 4 foot level is really more for using as a straight edge because we're going to be marking stuff. I've got my trusty pencil here that I got from McCoy's. That's our local lumber store. I've got painter's tape. This is primarily because I don't have extra paint to touch up paint after I'm done. So I'm going to tape off where we're going to be working at so I don't have to come back and paint later. And then I've got painter's paper just to kind of keep things a little bit cleaner because thin set and grout are kind of messy. Then kind of getting into the really grout tools, I've got a rubber trowel. This is going to be used for putting the grout on. I've got a notched trowel, and then depending on what kind of, not notched, notched trowel, V-notched. Depending on what kind of towel you're using, you may need to use a bigger one. This is an 1/8 inch notch trowel. If you're using something that's a little bit sturdier, you'll see the towel that we're using later on is a pretty thin, pretty easy to use ceramic tile. If you're using more like a thick porcelain tile, you may want to use something a little bit stiffer or bigger because you're going to need to have more thin set to hold that thing in place. I've got different types of spacers. I've got 16th inch spacers here. I've got 1/8 inch spacers here. I've got 2 sponges. I'm using a putty knife, but basically you need some type of corner knife or putty knife or something for the smaller pieces that you're going to have to cut to fill in around your plugs and things like that. I've got a caulk gun. That's going to be used at the very end for caulking things in, for siliconing things in around the plugs. Again, this is for a kitchen, so it's a wet space. You kind of want to keep water out of those spaces. I use 4 buckets. I'll explain why, I guess now, because we're going to jump into this pretty quickly. But the last thing that we're going to need is also a wet saw. I don't use the score and snap things. I don't like them, but particularly for what we're using here, I'm going to be cutting these right here, and so they're pretty small, as you can see right here. I don't. If you've got bigger tile, that's good. But if you don't, there's no need for them. But back to why I use 4 buckets. So I have 1 bucket that I just put water in that I use for refilling the tile saw. The tile saw uses water to keep the blade cool, to keep it sharp. I use 1 for putting the whether I'm using thin set or grout at that point in time. That's why they use that 1 for. I use 1 for the sponge that I'm using to clean everything up with. And then I use 1 for water, because after you cut your tiles, they're going to have debris on them. And so you're going to want to clean all your tiles before you put them back, before you put them onto the wall. So realistically, you can combine the one that you're using water for your tile saw and the one that you're using for your cleaning your tile. But I just like to have 2 because my tile saw kind of burns through water a little bit quicker than most do. So let me go talk about the tile saw that I do use. This is a pretty basic, pretty inexpensive tile saw. It's a Ryobi. For what I'm doing, it works pretty well. If you're using big 18-inch tiles, this is probably not the tile saw that you want to use. You probably want to go and rent or buy a bigger tile saw from a Home Depot or a Harbor Freight or something like that. That's designed for larger tiles. This works great for smaller tiles. The other thing is, if you're going to be using glass tile, first of all, be very careful, because glass tile is going to leave little shards everywhere, and if you don't wear gloves, and probably even if you do wear gloves, you're going to get cuts. Last time we did it, we've done this several times, and last time we did glass, it just completely tore up our hands. Couldn't really do much with our hands for the next day. So just be aware of that if you're looking at using a glass tile. It's beautiful. I love having glass. I hate doing glass. If you're going to hire somebody to do glass, expect to pay more, because it's more brittle. It'll break more. You're going to have more waste, and it's harder to work with. And so you have to go slower. Just lots of factors. You expect to pay almost double if you're going to use a glass tile. So just be aware of that. Other than that, I've just kind of got my random stuff. I got extension cords and things, a table to hold my tile saw. Let's see, more extension cords. As you can see, there are cats in the house. Basically what I'm going to have to do is take all of the electric fixtures off, pull them away from the wall, and then tile to what has already been cut for the sheetrock to put the electric fixtures in, and then put the electric fixtures back on with longer screws. So the only other thing that I haven't mentioned kind of here is I've already taken the stove out, but I haven't taken the microwave out yet. I will do that between the videos. I just didn't feel like doing it yet because we're actively living here and actively having to eat here. We're probably gonna do that after lunch, so we get a chance to microwave our food and have something to eat, and then we'll pull the microwave down and put everything in place. So that is kind of what you're going to need for tools. The next video will be materials, and I will get to that shortly. I'm going to try to get this uploaded, and if you guys have any questions about this, you can always give us a call. Give John a call at 512-426-2915. Or give me a call at 512-818-6803, and my name's Raymond. And again, this is FHF Solutions, and we're going to get on to that next part of the video with the materials. Talk to you soon.